Hello, everyone. This is Angelina Mojica sending you good vibes, and this is your Good Morning Minute. I'm excited because I have a dear friend of mine that I've just met over the past year, Laura Boyd, who's going to be sharing with us her story and journey and just all the things that come with that. So just a little bit about our topic this morning. It's called Creating the Life You Deserve, Empowering Women to Take Control of Their Life. And so, what we're going to hear in today's story is unlocking your truest potential and building the life you've always dreamed of. Now, this can be done with tools, strategies, and mindset. So, I'm excited to hear what Laura has to say about it. But it is empowering women to break free from limitations and take charge of their futures. So, Laura, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yes, hi, I'm Laura Boyd. I live here in Amarillo, Texas. I work for Martha's Home. I've been there about a month and a half. I work with women and children in the homeless shelter. A little bit of my background, I've worked with women for about since 2007. I've also worked in the women's prison where that's where I learned that I love working with women. Um, I had a lot in common with them, um, just growing up in a very trauma background and then having low self-esteem and all these things. And so what I love to do is share my personal uh, ways that I develop myself into becoming the person I am today, and just giving them the tools by life experiences that I've done to encourage them that there is so much more possibilities for them.
Mm. Yes. And you work with women. I've seen Martha's Home, and it is such a good ministry as far as helping people get back up on their feet and women to really understand that they can restart and rebuild
Yeah.
regardless of what adversity they've had to overcome. And so I'm going to just jump right into it because that's how I like to do things. What key steps can women take to start creating the life that they deserve?
I'll use my examples. I got tired of doing it myself on my own with my own strength. One day I just fell to my knees after all this disappointment I would cause my children. And I just surrendered to God. And I said, I can't do this alone anymore. Will you help me? And mind you, I didn't know where these words were coming from. Like, I just knew that it was the Holy Spirit guiding me. And I just knew I was just tired and I had enough of trying to do it on my own. And I know that was the pride settling in for me and just overcoming me in so many ways. I would get into bad relationships. I also was in drug addiction. I had low self esteem. And I just thought my title was going to be single mom, and that's all. Like, there was nothing there for me anymore, but I learned and I just kept battling every obstacle that I came through. The secret was just never giving up.
Mm.
And yes,
I like how you said that you hit like a rock bottom and you just you're on your knees and you immediately turn to God, because that very much was similar in my story too. When I hit my rock bottom, um realizing like it just at that point you're just collapsed over with all of these burdens and challenges, and you're at this point where you just don't know where you're going to pull the more strength to continue to move forward. So I appreciate you being very vulnerable in sharing that with us. So let's talk a little bit about habits, because when we are looking to change our lives, we have to evaluate what is working for us and what isn't working. And sometimes that means we have to change habits, and especially those habits that keep bringing us back into those same situations that we're tired of and that are not producing anything positive in our life. So what was that like for you?
I think I noticed that going into my 30s. I noticed that the people that I was surrounding myself weren't going anywhere, and they didn't have any goals. And I didn't want that. I knew there was more for me. I just didn't know where to find it, especially staying around that kind of environment and those people that aren't not moving anywhere. You stay stuck. And so I think for me, just getting tired of being in that situation, and learning just to love myself and educating me in different ways of overcoming different obstacles by hanging out with people that have accomplished stuff. Even if it's just the littlest things like getting out of bed in the morning, because I was at a point in my life where I didn't even want to do that.
Hmm.
And so that's where I just said, like, my kids are watching me and I want to give them more. And so just by changing the people, the environment, and setting goals for myself, I think I had to develop a structured routine for myself. Um, then I started going back to school. And because my younger sisters, I'm the oldest of five, they were beating me in education. And I felt like embarrassed for myself because I'm supposed to
Wow.
set the example for them.
Hmm.
So that's what hit me quick. And then starting to go to college, I was doing college and my high school diploma at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So, and raising my two little kids. And that kept me going. And getting my education was something that I thought was extremely helpful for me. And it allowed me to want more, especially for my children.
That is awesome. And do you think because you started to see, like, for some of us, and I speak from my own personal experience, when you're in the middle of your adversity or just all these challenges, it's hard to even look back and see the little accomplishments that you've made. But when you're in a place where you know that you're really working on yourself and you know that you're striving for something better, and you look back, and then it's like, now I recognize that I'm not where I used to be and I'm a little further ahead. I'm closer to my goals. Does that make the path more easier?
Yes, and it helps you understand. And I feel like it takes a foggy situation and it just clears it all up. Like, oh, that's why I went through what I went through. Because now I can relate to these women that I work with all the time. And a lot of times I tell them my story, they don't believe me. They say, like, really? No way. And I'm like, yes, honestly, that's why I'm not giving up on you because it's possible. I've been there and I've done it. So yeah, I think so. Yes. To answer your
Okay.
question.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm hearing a common theme when I'm interviewing women that are talking about their adversity and their challenges and then their success. And the theme I hear amongst all these interviews is network, like a network of support. Getting, and you said getting around people that were doing the things that I wanted to do, surrounding yourself with influential people that are helping motivate that desire you have to elevate your situation. How important do you think that element is in trying to create the life you deserve?
I think it's very important. And now that you said that and I heard you say it, I started hanging out with older women that have been there and done that and would tell me, no, sister, that's not what you're going to do today. Like, that's not how it's going to be done. And that's when I noticed I started growing more because I call them my golden girls back in California. I hung out with them and they just loved on me and they loved God. And that helped me out in so many ways. Because when I was in my 20s and going into my 30s, I was like, people don't get me. Like, they're on a whole different page than I am. They're like more worried about their Instagram selfies and their clubbing and their bar hopping and stuff like that. And I didn't want that. So I started hanging out with older women that were like, had my best interests at their heart. And they took me under their wing and they would take me to retreats and all this stuff. And that's what I needed. So it is very important.
Yeah, and I love that you said they mentored you, because taking
Yeah.
you under their wing and showing you the way. And you're right. When we start working on elevating our self, our life, whatever it is to achieve whatever goal we have, we start seeing how we become separate from where we were and the people we used to hang around with to where we're headed, and those people that are going to encourage us to get there. And I think that is a big aha moment. I know it was for me in my journey, to see that and recognize that, because how often when you are doing this journey of yourself, your self discovery and purpose, did you also get that conflict from those that used to hang out with, being like, oh, you think you're better than me, you think that you're miss, whatever now? I mean, how often was that, and how did you overcome those situations?
It was a lot, and they would call me boring Laura.
Oh.
I was boring to them now.
Wow.
But at the same time, I was so glad because I hate to say this, but I don't miss those hangovers or those staying out late at night like at that time. So
Hmm.
like I was good with it. Was in bed, I was safe, I was warm, I was in out and about, and I was becoming a better mother in this journey because
Mm.
I felt like being a single mom, already working so much, I don't need to be out all night. Like I didn't need that. So that's what helped me. And I knew my kids were at that age where they were watching me because they were beginning high school and stuff like that. So I thought it was important to just be home and be there for them because, like I said, I hardly wasn't because living in California, I would have to work double jobs, and then so just to take care of my kids. But yeah, no, I didn't mind it whatsoever.
Well, that's awesome, because it can be hard, and it can be something that pulls another person right back into those old habits and those old
Yeah,
routines. And then you're going to end up seeing the same results over and over again until you decide for yourself that you're not going to do that anymore. So I see how important it is. And I love that you're sharing that your children were also a motivating factor for you to become a better mother, a better person. Because you are, as women, we do influence our children, and they see what what a woman should look like through us, and I think that's important to also highlight as well. So I know that you mentioned low self-esteem as one of your barriers. So how did you overcome that? I mean, as far as self-doubt, fear, and just your own self-belief, how did you start building confidence?
uh, I would I would do inventory on myself and figure out what I was missing. And sometimes it was love, sometimes it was trust, and sometimes it was motivation, hope, all these things. I just started sitting at my kitchen table one day and just Googling all these verses for love and planting these seeds and writing every scripture of what I was lacking. And that's what helped me the most. That's what helped me the most. And also staying away from the negativity, because as we were saying, um, they would call me the boring Laura, but I had to stay away from the people that were talking to my old self
Mm,
because that's not who I was anymore. So I had to really remove myself and work on myself before I can start really growing because I didn't want to be that old person anymore. So don't
mm.
talk to me like I'm that old person anymore is what I had to tell people. So I had to love from a distance. That's what helped me. But the Bible scriptures of what I was lacking
Mhm.
build me. Yes.
And I love that you're sharing that, because you hear people say, "Oh, just give yourself affirmations or Bible scriptures," but you do. I mean, it's so important in trying to overcome this idea of who you thought you were, because based on circumstances or situations that you have encountered in your lifetime, to creating someone that is so foreign to you because either you didn't have it modeled for you as a child, or you just fell off the path, and it's just so far gone that you're like, there's no way that I can be redeemed and create something, or it's just never been something that was ever told that, yeah, you can. Because I know, as a child, I never received a message from my parents, that I could create any life that I wanted to. I just needed to believe in myself and know that I am wonderfully, fearfully made, and so I know for me, it was a constant, just inner battle between mine and self-doubt and fear. Like, can I do this? Is this something that, you know, is going to bring value to the world, or does anybody care? And then getting over those barriers of even people's opinions and stuff,
Yes.
because you know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
you just, I mean, it doesn't matter, because what God has asked of you, may not make sense for somebody else because he's not asking of that from that person. Would you
Yeah,
agree or disagree?
I really do agree with that. Yes, yes. Because everyone's individually made too, and your purpose is not my purpose, and my purpose is not your purpose. So,
Mhm.
yes, I totally agree with you
Yeah.
100%.
So when you're working with women, there at Martha's home, like how do you help them see that aspect of self? Like, okay, yeah, you had childhood trauma. Yes, you come from domestic violence or addiction or whatever. How do you help them see their potential?
I have that conversation with them and I get to know them individually, because yeah, we all have the same type of issues, but we don't have all the same upbringing, if that makes sense. So someone's perception might not be my perception and vice versa, but just sharing my life experiences and allowing them to get to know me and where I come from really resonates with them. So they can be like, oh, really? You have been experiences? How did you get out of this? And I'll give them examples and I'll tell them. And I'm like really open with them and honest with them. And most of the time, I end up the conversation with, you think I'm your blessing? You're actually my blessing. I get to watch you grow. And just me helping them network. I treat them and I try to take them out of that environment that they're so used to
Mhm.
and introduce them to different people and let them network and learn to advocate for themselves. Because I noticed that's the one thing they don't not know how to do. They do not know how to speak for themselves. They know how to, like, their opinion does matter. And so I make them feel really important and letting them know that we're in this together. You have a team, different organizations, and like taking them to the Women's Coalition and allowing them to be in that type of environment. I
Mhm.
see that really helps them too, because they feel a part of, and then
Yeah.
they get to speak and learn about all these different organizations instead of just isolating themselves. I like to give them life experiences, like my life experiences help me, so I know they'll help them. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
No, it does. And it really does because I am a true believer of the truth will set you free. And when I say that, I'm like, you have to be accepting of your story. It doesn't define who you are, but it is part of your story. And
Mhm.
the future, I mean, you hold the pen to your future so you can create what comes out of that story. And
Yeah.
so I very much I like being a part of those coalition meetings because they stand up there and they're very nervous to speak their story, but once they start getting into it, you almost see their shoulders lighten because they're not carrying that guilt and shame. It's almost as if their spirit is being set free from it. And I love to see just that bit of hope that is being instilled in them at that moment. I think it's a beautiful thing to witness for sure. So
Yes.
my next question, Laura, to you is how can you provide maybe some examples of how you successfully empowered yourself in transforming your life?
I I would say that there was times where I knew in like relationship wise, like it was over. And for whatever reason, I held on to them. Um, it ended up in a very bad circumstance, to where I had no choice but to let it go. And can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So just some examples of how you were able to empower yourself to transform your life. And if you want to
Uh,
share your story, you can share your story at this point.
okay. So I had gotten out of a very, very bad relationship to the point where I had lost everything and I had no choice but to surrender to God. And that from that moment on, I was so blessed and highly favored that I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything. But I was able to go to more places than I ever had in my life. I never missed church. I never missed anything until that day I surrendered to God. God really took me places I never thought I could ever imagine. And so, with that being said, I ended up learning myself, learning who I was, and becoming faithful with God. That I had to be these things with him in order to be that for someone else, like
Mhm.
faithful, communicate, put him first, all these things. And that's what made me a better person. Um, for my husband, for my kids, for my coworkers, for my friends, my family. That was the day that I noticed it changed my life drastically.
Mhm.
Because I am a strong believer that what type of relationship you have with God lets you know what type of relationships you're going to have with others. So I think that's when was a huge eye opener for me. Um, being all the things I wanted from in return, I had to be that with God first. Um, that's what helped me.
Mm. And that, I mean, I mean, I can totally resonate with that so much because I understand. I definitely understand because um to thing witness prayers being answered out of the clear blue, and you just go, okay, this is God. Like, just to
Yeah.
know that that's happening, it does change you internally. It does change your outlook of the world and people. And I think when we get to a place where we are self-accepting of our own faults, and we are forgiving of ourself, and just understand that we are human in nature, that it helps us, like you said, it helps us with our future relationships, because then we are no longer viewing the world through anger, resentment, frustration, hurt, but we can actually tap into someone else's situation, and become, more compassionate or empathetic to those situations. And so I think for me, my question to you, Laura, would be, how often do you find yourself like being that person of empathy or compassion to someone else? And what do you do when you run into situations where there are people that just don't want to receive that?
I run into it every day,
Mhm,
especially where I work. Uh, what do I do? I don't give up. I'll plant seeds here and there, because maybe it's not their timing. Maybe God doesn't have, maybe God still has them learning some things,
mhm,
but I don't give up. But at the same time, I got to watch out for me because I can't want it more than they want it. Because then I'll start getting bitter and ugly, and I don't want that. So I have to do like a checklist on myself, inventory myself every day, because I'll find myself wanting it more than them, and it's exhausting. But
yeah.
just not giving up on them, but at the same time, letting them know I'm here when you're ready. Or even because their mental health might not be okay for them to even go on to the next step. I
Mhm,
don't like to set them up for failure. So I'll watch them. And then if it's mental health, then I will have do that connection. Because if their mental health is not where it needs to be, I'm just giving them more disappointment. But
mhm,
that's the most thing I battle with is the mental health. And I don't want to push them into something that is going to lead them to the wrong path again, because then they feel rejected, and then we're worse off than when we started. So yeah, just checking on their mental health. I have to really watch for that and
mhm,
get resources for them. And that's the reason, another reason why we started the Women's Coalition, was to get all these organizations together and help close those gaps, because I can't do it by myself. And so having them go and hear all the stories where the girls have overcome, and then hearing all the agencies what they have to offer, that really helps them out a lot, because they know they're not the only ones. Because I know when I was feeling that way, I thought I was the only one in the world that was feeling that way. But you come together and you get that support, and it really helps them. It
that is
helps
all.
me too.
Yeah, because then you have connections and resources. So,
Yeah.
and that kind of leads into this last question that I have is, um, the importance of knowing the resources and support system, um, in order for them to take control of their life. So how many women do you actually understand this concept, and how do you help influence the importance of building a support network so that they can continue to elevate themselves and achieve those goals.
Well, I learned that I can't have the same structure for every single one of them. I got to get to know them on a one-on-one basis and go from there because,
Mhm.
like I said, they can have learning disabilities or mental health disabilities or just trusting people is one huge thing that is a barrier for them. So I get to know them and figure out when the time is right and learn what they like, learn what actually just listening to them and what they want helps me a lot. Um, Instead of just guessing and giving them all the same structure, because then that's just setting myself up to failure and them too. So I like to get to know them on a one-on-one basis and learning what their barriers are.
That's awesome because it's not a cookie cutter solution.
No,
There's
it's
no
not.
way because everybody is an individual. So that really makes sense to me. Uh, so tell us what's coming up in the future for you, Laura. What are some things that
Well,
you have coming up?
so we're gonna start having women conferences now. So I have the first one coming up in October, the 5th, and you're in it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then in March, we'll have one called Drama Queen Recovery. So this is all new, like just doing women conferences at Martha's home. And then we have some on the second Friday of every month, we have a women's coalition, like we were saying. And that's where all these types of organizations come together to help close the gaps for the women and children. Um, and that's pretty much it. But I know it's just the beginning. God has a lot in store for us. Yes.
Yes, yes, and I claim that too, and I'm excited to see where this leads you, because I know that we've shared some stuff, and I'm just excited to see how God continues to utilize you in your purpose because you definitely are here with a purpose for sure. So let's say I have a listener that's like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to her a little, some more. How can they get in contact with you?
They can I have a Facebook page. It's just Laura Boyd. But if they can email me at laura@marthashome.com, feel free to. They can connect through you because you're my friend.
Yes, yes, they can.
So
Okay,
I
cool.
yeah,
All right. Well, everyone, that is my friend Laura Boyd with Martha's Home in Amarillo, Texas. And I am so excited to have had her as a guest, and I'm looking forward to her conference this October. So, everyone, you know who I am. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.